Good morning. How is your Sunday going? I hope you're all good. Welcome to a brand new week. I want to speak to the subject, stay awake. It's an invocation, um, an appeal that you should stay awake. Or as they will stay, as they will say in street parlance, G, Masun, no sleep, wake up. You understand? I have a reason for urging you to stay awake. And I'll try and explain. Back in 2020, about this time in 2020, I had reason, maybe even as early as about April, May 2020, I had reason to speak with a few friends. I know as a fact that I spoke with Baba Ogunlano. I discussed this as well with, yes, Yele, uh, wise man, yeah. And I spoke with a few of the people within the different movements where we've believed together that something fundamental has to change about Nigeria. So we've spoken about the required changes in revolutionary terms, even though we might not have always agreed on methods. And I spoke with people either together or as individuals, but I know that it was very common for me to have spoken in those days, in that season, like the second and early third quarter of 2020, that we were sleeping through a revolution. And some of them would ask me what I meant when I kept insisting that we were sleeping through a revolution. But even I wasn't completely sure of why I felt like that. But intuitively, I sensed that we were missing something in that season. So I just spoke blithely about us sleeping through a revolution. And then we entered the last quarter of the year. And then you had the series of protests against police brutality, which snowballed eventually and became the NSAS protests. I've been to a few rodeos in my time, and those with whom I went through universities will attest to the fact that I'm probably one of the earliest to speak against protests. I've never been a believer in protests, not necessarily because I don't believe in change, but because I really don't believe that there's any point in protesting to a system that will not change. So instead of speaking to a protest, I've always believed that set out the revolutionary parameters of engagement with the system and know that these are the parameters behind which you are uniting the people so that they might demand a change. So that when the system might have been removed, this is what should be replacing it, and the people themselves should have clarity as to exactly what they are signing on for. This has always been my own belief. I don't believe that you can. What's the point of protesting to a deaf person who is equally completely blind and is uncaring about your feelings? You are protesting to somebody who is taking pleasure from your pains. So I've always believed that it's a waste of time, and the Nigerian state has taught me this since my earliest years. I was in Aberdeen Primary School during the Ali Must Go riot. I inhaled the tear gas. I had to go through Olorogun Creek to go back to my house at Olorogun, at Second Gate. So exactly what is anybody going to tell me about the Nigerian state when it had already been introduced to me so early in my life? There is a big, the other day I posted a video that I saw online of some young man who was being slapped, happy slapped by a soldier, whether that was a cadet soldier or a commissioned soldier, I don't know. But the important thing is that this person was in army uniform and he was slapping this hapless minor silly. And I said, believe it or not, when I was in Oscars as a 16-year-old boy in Oscars in Ife, 16-year-old boy, I was similarly slapped by a police officer. It's nothing new. That's the Nigerian state in its naked form. It doesn't pretend to be anything but that. And you, even though you might delude yourself, that is what it is. In my youth, Abiola's children were slapped by Air Force officers. Despite all of his monies and influence, that is because Nigeria is found on impunity. So it's completely normal to me. So when they started the protest, thought nothing of it, then it became quite intriguing because whilst they started with NSAS, it soon snowballed, end impunity. I said, aha, these kids are beginning to get it. Said, end bad governance. I laughed. End corruption. What became as a single issue protest became a revolution in disguise. The revolution had told our friends that we were sleeping through. So instead of us to have prepared and offered the people an opportunity for change, we became reactionaries in the moment when we should have demanded substantive change of the Nigerian state. Reactionaries, I say, because, and this is where we need to stay away. We need to stay away. I say we are reactionaries because the Nigerian state spent time, committed resources, great resources, to making sure that the people forget what it did at Lekki Toll Gate. Lekki Toll Gate was in the first place where the Nigerian state had displayed its brutality, murderous brutality. I'll remind you that a few years before, Buratai's convoy had murdered over 430 Shia Muslims. Those are in my figures. Those are figures that comes directly from the Kaduna State Commission of Inquiry. So, Lekki was merely something that they believed had to be done. But we, who were sleeping through the revolution, who ought to have known that that was what the system would do, what did we offer the people? Even when the state turned around and started denying and playing all sort of propaganda games, hounded DJ Switch out of the country, I salute the courage of the victims who came out. Abira Ayuku, who coordinated the victims, Baba Ogunlano for his tirelessness, Ayo Atemilui, the Revolution Now crew, and a host of others. The truth came out. Every member, hear this, every member of the Lagos panel were appointees of Judicial. Every one of them. Some came from the State Ministry of Justice, but the unanimous finding of their panel is that there was a massacre at Lekki Toll Gate. I don't need them to tell me that. I know that already because I had to deal with survivors. Both those who were injured, scarred for life, amputees, and those who have been psychologically affected because they witnessed and survived this. But the victims themselves, and I speak to the society, they slept through it because we also allowed them to sleep through it. The Nigerian state fed them lies, desensitized them to the humanities of the victims. The fact that the Lagos state government, through Jide Sanwo-Olu, paid cash totaling 100 million to victims proves the lies of their public denials. You hear me? It proves the lies. Let them deny it. So now you've got a situation where the truth clearly established makes it impossible for the state to deny its nature. We saw all of this. We saw the disconnect between the victims and their would-be liberators. Yorùbá ní wọ́n ń torí àjájà. Àjá sọ pé àwọn wo ló ń jà lẹ́ǹkùlé òun. Those on whose behalf we strive. They're so disconnected from the battle for their liberation that they even insult, assault, and sometimes fight in the armies of the oppressor to kill their would-be liberators. We saw all of this. But since we didn't have arms, and we have been decidedly pacifists, deliberately so, we had to act in some way. And that way was what informed the decision to keep the people awake. How? We kept you connected to your PVC. Different people at different levels, different organizations for different reasons in a season came after you and begged you to connect yourself to your PVC. Those of us who knew what happened at Lekki Toll Gate and in many places, just as an example, because it's just one more example of what the Nigerian state is capable of. Those of us who are familiar with this will realize that in the absence of a resolve to bear arms, we have to weaponize our PVC. The system claims that it is a democracy. The first duty of a democracy is the sanctity of the vote. So we sought to reconnect you to your PVC. And because of that, started begging you to go and register to vote. We believed that if we cannot get this peacefully on the street, we should be able to get it peacefully at the polls, because it was clear, and it remains clear, that the way and current trajectory of the Nigerian state is not sustainable. Something has to give if Nigeria is to be saved. We cannot continue the way we are, the way we already were in that season. This was clear to all of us. And it was on this basis that we sought to connect you to your PVC. Of course, the illusion of a free and fair electoral process predicated on IREV, polling level results uploaded real time. Some of us who lived through the option A4 of June 12, 1993, we thought we were going to see it in digital form, you know. The Nigerians were finally going to be able to express their rights as citizens. Because for me, that is the foundation, your franchise, your vote. That is the foundation of your citizenship. Without your franchise, you're not a citizen. So for me, that was the first way to test the reality or illusion of my citizenship and our collective sovereignty. Even though Nigeria has a distinct and dubious honor of being the only country in the world where the state is the sovereign and not the people. Baffling, isn't it? But that's what it is. But the question is, who is the state? Because that state certainly is not the collective of we. But lest I digress, let me take you back to where we were. So, the next battleground, since the protest ground wasn't going to be the battleground, since they wouldn't let it be peaceful, was the electoral process. So we sought to reconnect the people to the electoral process. And we kept you awake. And we stayed awake. And yes, we won. I say it, we won. No matter how hard anyone might struggle to rewrite history, the fact is, we won. We won so convincingly that in Lagos State, INEC till today is incapable of providing the Form EC8A, which are the polling unit level result sheets, till today. And I challenge them to bring them out. Till today. That's how convincing the victory was. And you know something else? It had them so scared that Oro had to come out to bring back Orojide. So let's not be kidding ourselves and be trying to rewrite history. We won convincingly across Nigeria. It wasn't Peter Obi that won. It was the Nigerian people. We won in Nasarawa. We won. It wasn't the Labour Party. It was the disadvantaged across Nigeria, the victims of Nigeria, across the length and breadth of Nigeria. We won. No amount of rewriting, editorial work is going to rewrite the history of what took place on the 25th of February. We won. We won. We won convincingly. We won. The quantum of our victory I'm not INEC. If they ever elect to let IREV work, they know the quantum. Some organizations in Nigeria also claim to know the vote. I challenge those who claim they know it. Let them release it. We won convincingly. We won. The people won. It wasn't Peter Obi. That's the point I've labored to make for a few people. It wasn't about Peter Obi. Peter Obi was merely a totem. Before the election, after the election, he remains but a totem. If he deviates from the path that he has locked himself into, lockstep with the people, desirous of the same changes as the people, somebody else will take his place. If I fall tomorrow, somebody else will take my place. Nobody is sacrosanct. It is the ideas and ideals of change, which leads me to something else I've been meaning to say for a bit. We're already in a repressive regime. If anybody ever come for me, let nobody ever start any argument about free this, free that. Don't free me. I'll take my chances with the same court system. Don't even focus on me. Focus on the issues that we have discussed. It's about issues. It's not about persons. It's about the issues. Things need to change. We can't be traveling in this direction. Our children, are they going to remain refugees in foreign land? Are they? Do you want that for them? We won. Nobody is going to rewrite this history. This is the part where I'm saying, wake up. Masun. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. Wake up. Stay your mind up. You understand? Keep it awake. Stay awake. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. We won. And anybody who says that we didn't, any shred of evidence that they have, let them bring it out. We won. We won. Even those who stole the victory, they know. And anyone who continues to say that we are graduate, we didn't win, let them bring out what they have. Let them bring it out. At least if they brought out something, we would have something to argue with. Even INEC has not been able to bring out a result until date. Till date, nothing from INEC. Nothing. I repeat it, nothing. Go to the site. So if anybody has this and says that what we are claiming is wrong, let them bring it out. We won. We won. Now, I have been heard often making clear my total lack of confidence in the Nigerian judiciary is experiential, and this is also evidence-based. And if you don't believe me, remember the words of the retired Justice of the Supreme Court, an eminently qualified person. I can't remember his name readily now, but he spoke eloquently as to the state of the Nigerian judiciary. So this is not about what Dele thinks, it's about what has become an established fact. I knew all of these when I was urging that instead of taking to the streets, we should take to the court. I was one of those who came out openly to advocate that we took the judicial course, and I had my reason. It was critical that the judiciary be allowed to introduce itself properly to the Nigerian people. It was critical that these questions of facts and of law should be placed before the judiciary in the public space and then let it go ahead and find as it cares and adequately introduce itself to the Nigerian people. That was my belief long before the election, long before there was a Peter Obi. It was already my own conviction that when the time should come, whoever it was that the people would queue behind, that the Nigerian state would kick against, we must use the judicial system. Go and read the imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution. That book is at least 3 years old now. That's long before there was a Peter Obi. Long before there was a Peter Obi. So it was always important that the Nigerian judiciary be brought to the market space and allowed to introduce itself for exactly what it is. And it did. It did. But regardless of what it said, fact remains, we won. The state did its bit. But the question is this: what's the end game? The end game is to keep you awake. The system has shown you its abject nudity. It has made clear that the electoral system is completely useless and unfit for purpose as it stands. We have also proven that the Nigerian judiciary is anything but a place from where to seek justice. This is just so that by the time the next cycle comes round, you all stay awake in the understanding that what we seek and what we should all focus on are not persons, but substantive change to the way we do things, to the way we are, to the way we're currently living, to the choices we've made as a society. Amongst all these things that are very urgent in the Nigerian state, the president and the National Assembly found it very urgent to change the national anthem. That was such a legislative priority that it ran through in record time. And of course, I would imagine that they were also singing on your mandate, we shall stand, whether in their private chambers or in council. But they passed it because the president wants it. And it's a national emergency. There's a bill, no, there's a suit before the Supreme Court now, which is literally seeking to make the local government part of the federating unit in Nigeria. I will not put anything past the Nigerian courts. If that is the wish of His Imperial Majesty, it is not impossible that that is what the Supreme Court will declare. Those are important issues by which you need to stay awake. Because Nigeria is slowly but surely about to become the feudal, hear me again, the feudal republic of Nigeria. Simply means that the fact of our being non-citizens, since we are not free to elect whoever we care, legitimately so, said our judiciary, and local governments are now going to become federating units in their own rights. In which case, INEC is also going to become the one that conducts elections, even for these local governments. Nigeria would have been fundamentally restructured in a manner that even makes a mockery of the current one that we are lying and calling a federation. In the midst of all of these distractions, I urge you to stay awake. G. Masun. Don't let it all be about surviving, making a living. Stay awake. Something is brewing. I don't know what is. I don't know when. I don't know how. But I know that a moment will demand pretty much of us a decision as to whether we're citizens, freeborns, or serfs. Whether we're capable of using our brains to recognize the commonalities of our afflictions and then find common purposes, or whether we would allow ourselves to be recruited to fight in the armies of our oppressors. I sense that that moment is coming again. But I beg you, do not sleep through the next cycle. In 2020, we slept through a revolution. Stay awake. Hmm? G. Masun. Ashiri. Oh, and yeah, have a beautiful week ahead. Have a beautiful week.